bonding over bureaucracy or some kind of shared experience or shared trauma. It's very interesting. So when you meet these people, you actually kind of fall in love with them a little bit more because they're weirder than usual. They don't think the way you think. They don't think the way that all of your friends and your parents and your family back home thinks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Chill Chats with Sid Gandhi. I'm your host, Sid Gandhi. And I know it's been a while, so thank you, first of all, for your patience. And I apologize for taking the time that I needed to take the time to do some personal things. And now I'm back, and I hope to be back for a more continued period of time, more regularly. So thank you for waiting, and I'm very, very happy I get to share this episode with you. Today, I am talking to you about something that I think really matters to me. And I've thought about this over the last few months because it has come up oftentimes. But apart from that also, I feel like just in the day-to-day course of my life, my thoughts kind of gravitate towards this concept. And it's friendships. Friendships are insane. They're ridiculous. They make no sense whatsoever. But all of a sudden, you meet somebody, and a few weeks later, you're ready to share your whole life with them. You're opening up to the most sensitive parts of yourself, the softest parts of yourself, to a person who was an absolute stranger maybe 6 weeks ago. And it's very interesting because we really allow ourselves to do that with people that we find a connection with. And there is a certain magic to be able to meet somebody without having a context placed on it. As an example, if I meet somebody just because they're a friend of my brother or a cousin or somebody that I know through some kind of professional context or any other context, that relationship in and of itself is going to start off as limited. Whereas people that you meet randomly at a bar on a Saturday night, they can be anybody. And the joy of discovering them is also the joy of friendship in and of itself. So it's incredible. Friendship is a lovely topic. It makes me think a lot because I've had a lot of my kind of life themes revolved around friendship, given the fact that I've had to move so many different places in my life. And every time I've moved, I've had to cultivate a new group of friends, lose a lot of people, learn what it means to be a friend over the course of all these different experiences. And that's why I think today will be an interesting episode because it kind of highlights a couple of things. First, friendships as an important, big part of our lives. No matter how old you are, you always feel the need for friends. And the second one would be friendships through the lens of an expatriate. It's actually very, very interesting because one of the things you realize as an expatriate immediately as you move to a whole new place and you start generating new connections with people, you kind of realize that this stuff is, how much meaning you give to it is completely dependent on you. And it's very interesting because as an expat, in your heart of hearts that everybody that you meet and everybody who is a friend of yours today could potentially leave tomorrow. As an expat, I feel like it's just the problems of life, but kind of condensed into a shorter time frame because you don't know how many people are going to stick around in the long run wherever you are and how long you're going to be there and all kinds of different things because you're on very different journeys, right? And maybe you meet people for a short amount of time. Anyway, so I think that one of the big characteristics of an expat friendship is its inherent transience, right? And that's very interesting. So it kind of leads us into a whole bunch of different topics about how we deal with potential loss, how we deal with the insecurities of having someone that is so close to us potentially just leave, and how we cope with that in terms of the ways in which we interact with those people also. So it's a really interesting topic. I'm very fascinated by it. I think the first thing I'll say is that I've had the privilege in my life to make many, many, many friends from all over the world, and that has allowed me to open my mind a decent amount. When I say open my mind, I mean like not necessarily stick to the idea that only my way of life is the only way of life, or my way of life is the only way of life, if that makes sense. Um, I've had friends who have had completely different lifestyles than I, and that has helped me grow significantly, to make choices that are for me. Things that maybe I want to carry on from my upbringing, and things that maybe I want to leave behind from my upbringing and my culture, and add other people's kind of most positive elements for me in my life. It really allows you to grow. So I've had an incredible plethora of people that I've met that have taught me many things, right? Now, one of the problems that I have personally is that I cannot deal with loss. It's very difficult for me to deal with loss. I unfortunately have had to say goodbye to many, many, many close friends over the course of my time as an expatriate. I started off as an expatriate around the age of 7, honestly, when I moved from India to Oman. And around the age of 17, after I said goodbye to all of my high school friends, I moved to Canada. And in Canada also, it was very interesting because none of your friends that you had from day one would necessarily remain your friends after 4 years of university, because I moved to Canada to do an undergraduate degree in economics and political science. Um, anyway, so I moved there, I made friends, but even in the second year of university, you see a lot of people leave. Either people want to go to a different school or people want to change programs, and you don't see them as often. And then after that, you say goodbye to everybody, and then you move to a whole new place, and you do that all over again, and you do it all over again, and you do it all over again. And in Paris, I've had to do that as well, and I have loved it. All of these people have been incredible, but the problem is that every time I say goodbye to people, it hurts. It hurts so much. And I feel like it's very unfair that you have to let people that you've invested so much of your time, energy, and kind of love into go. And that's just the nature of expat friendships, and that's just something that you kind of have to get over if you would like to participate in that kind of game. It's very interesting because as an expat, you have many options, right? So you can definitely bond with somebody over things like bureaucracy and language. And, I assume that English speakers in Paris, people who are still learning French, make friends with people who are also other English speakers who are in the process of learning French. It's very difficult for somebody who is an English speaker not speaking French to get into a group of French people, because it's just, you wouldn't follow along. You wouldn't feel like you're having a good time. You'd be having to kind of focus on what people are saying and understand them, and it would take a decent amount of time. And you would have to have you'd have to have fun with it in order to be able to actually learn. And for a lot of people, that's difficult, especially when you don't know the language. It can be very difficult. Anyway, so you bond over things with people who, I guess, speak the same language as you, or with people who are going through the same kind of like bureaucratic hurdles that you're facing, and they're experiencing a whole bunch of administrative tasks that you have to go through as well, or any kind of other work-related stuff. You meet these people who are also expats, and it's very interesting because you don't know where their life is going, but you bond with them despite the fact that if they were back in your home country, you would not have willingly made friends with them. Not because you're not a friendly person or they're not a friendly person. It's just they would not have been in your circle of friends, because your circle of friends were the kind of people that you like to hang out with, as opposed to a group of people that were made out of a necessity of some sort, or some kind of like bonding over bureaucracy, or some kind of shared experience or shared trauma. It's very interesting. So when you meet these people, you actually kind of fall in love with them a little bit more, because they're weirder than usual. They don't think the way you think. They don't think the way that all of your friends and your parents and your family back home thinks. And you kind of fall in love with them. And that's really a great part of expat friendships. And it's so fun to get to know how somebody else thinks and where they're coming from, and learn about their culture and eat their kind of food, and just appreciate them as people and human beings. However, again, they're going to leave. Maybe they're going to leave. And that's just something that you have to kind of ask yourself. Is this something that I'm willing to invest in, despite the fact that someday people are going to leave? And is the point of an expat friendship to keep people to stay so that they have witnessed your life and your growth somehow? Or is it just the experience of it? Because I swear to God, I've had people leave on me, and I would not have traded in any time with anybody else uh, for having spent time with them. I'm not sure if that sentence made sense, but I would not have traded in the time that I spent with them with anybody else, because of the fact that that in and of itself, I mean, the reason I missed them so much is because they were special, and that mattered, you know? And I think that's something to kind of realize as well. I feel like we don't do that enough. Every time you miss somebody, you only think of it as a negative thing, or not necessarily, but you know, you can have obviously positive nostalgia emotions. But every time you miss somebody, you feel like it's a negative thing. It's like, oh shit, like I don't have something that I used to have. And yes, that's right. But also, if you didn't miss them, it wouldn't matter so much. So it's a good thing that you missed them. You know, it is the flip side of appreciating your friends when they're there. You know, you appreciate them when they're not there. And I think that was one of my learnings, was that even if there are people that you know are going to leave very, very shortly, it is in your best interest to try and make those memories anyway, because at the end of the day, there is no one with a ledger out there saying that you spent X amount of time with this friend and Y amount of time with this friend, and there's nothing like that. You're just trying to build a good future, and part of that is having the best experiences, right? So that's just my take on you know, sometimes you meet people and they're going to leave in like 6 months, and you know they get very close to you, and it happens so quickly you don't even realize it. Overnight, all of a sudden you're calling them at 2 a.m. with some kind of problem that you're facing, or they're calling you with something else, and you just realize that, hang on, this is my person now for how much ever time that they're there. And I think that, I guess my thesis statement to all of this would be that you should go out and play those roles fully, even if tomorrow you wake up and they never happened, even if the effect of that was as if it never happened. The fact that you went through it is enough, you know. So I would recommend very, very highly, make your friends, even if you don't know for sure that they're going to last. This is just the nature of being an expatriate. You have a lot of impermanence in your friend groups, you know, and nobody really teaches you how to deal with this kind of grief. If you have this kind of grief, if you've lost people because you have had to move, or they've had to move, or for whatever other reason, nobody teaches you how to deal with this kind of grief, because it's not grief that comes from the loss of somebody because they died. They're there, they're happy, they're living well, they're somewhere else in the world, but they're not part of your everyday experience, and that kind of stings, you know. So that's just something that, like, I feel like I've had to get over for sure. And yeah, I guess I just wanted to talk about that. Another thing I really want to talk about was expectations. So think about it. As expats, it's insane, but we come from so many different places, right? So I have a friend group right now where so many people are from like North Africa, and then we have a whole bunch of people from the United States and Canada, and we have a whole bunch of other people from other places in the world, you know, and it's very, very cool because all of them are coming from completely different cultures, completely different understandings, completely different expectations about what it means to be a friend. You know, you've got some people who truly, truly believe that a friend is somebody that you ride at. It's ride or die. Like you go all out for them. If they're in an issue of some sort, they have your back. And if you're ever, or if they're in an issue of some sort, you need to have their back. That's just what a friend is. A friend is a much closer thing for some people than for others. For others, it's like, yeah, we meet once or twice a week, we grab a drink, we talk about life, surface level. And if you ever need me, sure, maybe I'll be there, but no expectations need to be placed on me or you, and we can sort that out. And that's very interesting also, because how do you take these two different perspectives on the same thing, which is friendship, and kind of meet in the middle somewhere in a city like Paris? It's very, very interesting. And the question becomes, when you're coming in from a completely different culture, or let's say with me, you know, I come from a place where, at least in my mind, in my home, the idea of home for me, my friends would be there for me if I needed them in any kind of situation. I mean, I don't usually get into situations where I need people at 2 a.m., but if there was something, I could easily call somebody and they would pick up, and it would not be weird. And the same way, I would be there for somebody else. That's the kind of friend that I have learned that I kind of associate with the idea of home for me. And one thing that I'm doing when I move to Paris or anywhere else in the world is, weirdly enough, recreating home in a different context, right? So if, for example, I come in here with a whole bunch of different expectations about friends and friendships, and I meet people who have the opposite expectations of friendships. So people who are like, okay, if you're my friend, you're not going to get too close in terms of my personal life, and you respect my boundaries, and you don't. There's different kinds of people out there who require different things, and I feel like one of the joys of being an expat is being able to kind of ride that wave of understanding of different people, because as soon as you're riding that wave, you're getting to know the person better, and as soon as you get to know the person better, you're loving them more, and that's a fun thing to do. So it's quite a lovely process when you understand where somebody else is coming from in terms of their expectations. And I don't think that you should necessarily meet or try to meet everybody else's expectations. That's not a good way of going about living your life. I feel like you're pushing yourself too much in that sense. If you think that this is something that really bothers you, if you want a definition of friends that is one way, and people are coming in and giving you a different perspective on something that you hold as valuable or sacred, I think it should be your right as well as your responsibility to choose the friends that you think align with you most. But also, I feel like there is a lot of joy in allowing yourself to kind of change into a person a little bit that adapts to the people you love, because you also kind of want to show yourself that you're willing to do that for other people. It's very interesting, So I think my definition of friends has changed over time significantly, very, very significantly. Initially, it was way more needy. Now I feel like way less needy about the whole idea of friends, because I feel like the friends I have are going to be there just because I am me, and there's nothing I am actively doing on top of just being who I am that they need to want to hang out with me. So it's about kind of maybe finding that balance, and that's always interesting. And I think the last thing I want to say about the whole idea of expat friendships is that because you have all of these different people coming in with all of these different ideas of what friendship should be, a whole bunch of different cultures from a whole bunch of different backgrounds, and they are kind of just meeting somewhere and having a giant old party where they kind of create new experiences with one another, go out dancing, go out drinking, do the 50 million things there are to do in Paris. Once you start doing those things, you start to realize that at the end of all of the discussions about what friends should be and what friends shouldn't be are experiences that you kind of really want. All of these people have something to teach you, something to show you, some way in which you can look at the world that you don't need to necessarily adapt to, but you can at least accept, and that's always a blessing, I think. That's always something that that I feel we take for granted, And I guess the overall thesis statement for this episode would be value it. If you're in the process of finding friends in a different city, especially if it's Paris, and you're fumbling through the process, I would definitely recommend keep fumbling. Keep fumbling. You'll get there. You'll find the people that you think are right for you. You will fall in love many times, and you will want to support them as much as you can, and they will want to support you as much as they can, and you will find that sense of home even here. This is what I suspect we're all doing. I suspect that we're all trying to recreate home in new places. So if you're an expat and you're watching this, good luck doing that, and I'll see you for the next episode. Thank you for watching. Happy friend making. Happy making your friends. Go make your friends. Go make friends. Really, it's really a lovely process. It's such a exciting thing to do. Meeting somebody new, learning where they're coming from, and finding the balance for yourself with respect to how much you want to get attached to them, how much you want to invest in them, how much energy you want to give a relationship. all that's a little bit magic. So you should definitely, I encourage you to find any opportunity to say hello to somebody, you know. And as expats in Paris, there's a lot of us out there who also want you to come up and say hi. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.